Did the green children of Woolpit bring some kind of plague to England? Were they perhaps just covered in green paint? Why haven't we covered this on the podcast yet? Stick around and you might just find out the answers to these questions on this episode of Unsolved Mysteries. Solved! Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. As I like to say, it is once again the most mysterious day of the week, Thursday, and that means we're going to definitely solve yet another mystery, because that is what we do. I am Chad Kimmons, PhD in solving unsolved mysteries. My guest, again today, returning for, I believe this is your fourth appearance on the podcast?
Yes, it is.
Would be my good friend RJ Enns, who is also now a PhD in solving unsolved mysteries, as we found out last time you were here.
Yeah.
You said you were going to get another PhD. I assume you've done that by now.
I have two more, actually.
Well, wow. Been busy.
Yeah.
What did you get?
Well, I got a PhD in studying Harrison Ford.
Okay.
That's exactly what it sounds like. I've just watched a lot of Harrison Ford.
Okay.
And my other PhD actually is in botany. I kind of went off the beaten path. I watched a little-known movie called The Martian, and I was like, well, that seems useful, so I'm ready for whatever this world has to offer. I can survive on Mars. I can survive, on Earth. It's great.
I'm just imagining that the Harrison Ford one was basically you just watching literally everything Harrison Ford on streaming, and so ASU was just like, you've earned it, just have it.
Actually, that degree came from Netflix. They said you've watched, 347 hours of Harrison Ford, so we are legally obligated to send you this PhD.
I'm not sure that that's an accredited university, but...
It's a PhD. So now
you got a paper that says I have.
I'm Doctor.
Doctor. Well, as I understand it, you got a topic that you want to present today, Mr. Enns.
Yes, I do. My first independent study into being a PhD holding member of solving unsolved mysteries. Today, I would like to take us back to a simpler time, a time called the 12th century, or for those who don't think about things that way, the 1100s. We're going to a English village called Woolpit.
Was this during is this considered part of the Dark Ages?
This is medieval.
Okay.
So this is after the Dark Ages.
Okay.
So it'd be the medieval period. Before the Renaissance, after the Dark Ages.
Right.
Woolpit, a English village, actually derived from an Old English term which meant wolf pit. It was called this because around the town there were these big pits dug that were lined with stone to trap wolves, because I'm guessing it was a large problem there. The time we are going to is the summer, where some workers working out near the wolf pits discovered two strange children. Their skin was green, and their clothes were unfamiliar, using dyes and colors they hadn't seen before in a fashion style that was not local to the area. When the children spoke, they spoke an unfamiliar language. Nobody in the town could understand them.
I've already solved it.
Uh-huh.
But no, continue.
Okay.
I've already solved it.
Now, aside from this, the children appeared like any other normal human children. They just had green-tinted skin and weird clothing. The children were brought into town. They seemed to be in shock and confused. And for days, they would not eat anything. They brought them bread and food, and they refused to eat until they brought some green beans, raw green beans, and the children devoured them ravenously. Over time, they were eventually able to convince the children to eat other things, and as they continued feeding them a much more balanced diet, their skin became normal. So that went away. Unfortunately, the boy. By the way, these children were determined to be brother and sister.
Okay.
But the boy never really got well, and he ended up getting sick and passing away. However, the sister ended up recovering and eventually learning English. And after she did, she told them this story. She said that they had come from a land of night, where the only source of light was twilight, and everything was green. She called the land St. Martin's Land. She said they had crossed a great river to come here, and that she did not know how they got to Woolpit. The last thing she remembers is they were tending cattle owned by her father when they heard bells, and they believed it was the bells of the local church. They followed the bells with the cattle and ended up going through a cave. When they came out of the cave, they were in Woolpit, and they could not find the entrance to this cave. So that's the story. That's all we have. This was recorded by two period writers. Ralph of Coggestall and William of Newburgh both had this documented. And they were both local to the area within around the same time period.
Okay. It was very interesting. Sorry, I'm looking up what could cause green skin.
Well, I can tell you what could cause green skin. So there's a disease called chlorosis. The green sickness is what they called it, where red blood cells are paler than normal because they don't have enough iron in them. It can produce a greenish tint to the skin.
That's actually the first thing that popped up.
And this would explain why they got better as they were eating a more balanced diet. If they had been malnourished beforehand and got this greenish tint because they didn't have enough iron in their blood.
Right.
So that's one thing. Any other observations?
Yeah, kinda. But I'm gonna save that for the speculations and solutions portion.
Okay.
Because I feel like you got more to tell.
I do have some more. So even back then, we like to meme about the aliens guy from the History Channel. But this guy was alive back then, Chad.
Was he?
I mean, not literally, but the idea. The people of the time believed that they had come from the heavens, which is the modern equivalent of saying, or the old-timey equivalent of saying, aliens. But we all know that they weren't aliens. That's crazy. If anything, they were fairy children. But
unless they literally meant they came from heaven. But I mean, as a scientific scholar, I have no interest in what the Bible says, but I have read it as a scientific scholar. I know those two statements contradict each other. I'm aware of that, and I don't care. I remember a passage in the Bible where it said that angels were green.
Yes, that's one common translation. I believe that is in the King Rudolph Bible translation.
Yes, in the book of Woolpit, actually. Written by the people who found these children.
Yes, he was the king of Woolpit. He was actually the village idiot of Woolpit because they were clearly under the jurisdiction of England. But they let him pretend to be king, and he translated his own Bible.
So when you told, first off, when you said wolf pit earlier, I mean, I knew it had something to do with wolves and pits, but I was imagining, before you explained it, I was imagining that this town is just a pit where wolves dwell, and so every day they're just afraid for their lives. We're out of water, I have to go to the well. I'm probably not gonna make it. Please take care of the children if I don't make it back. And it's why would they settle here?
Can you imagine being the villageman whose job it was to check the wolf pits every day? Like, oh yep,
God.
Sector B, Pit A has a wolf in it. We gotta clear that out.
Imagine he's just coming back every day, like bedraggled. Like, man, gets home, sits down. His wife has got food on the table. She's like, "How was your day, honey?" "How do you think it was? I had to check the wolf pits again. I really got to find a different job. My boss is just. I don't even get workman's comp when I get hurt. There's no benefits." Anyway, continue.
So obviously the idea that they're aliens, of course, it's gotten thrown out and thrown around because they showed up green.
Right.
But most scholars believe that the most likely story is that they are Flemish immigrants, which means that they came from Flanders. Flanders around that time had become overpopulated. Many of them immigrated to England as a result because it's just across the Strait of Dover. Which may explain the huge river that she said she crossed to get there.
Okay.
Now, the question, about their language and everything, it is possible that they were speaking, I believe, a form of Dutch was what they spoke in Flanders, and that the Woolpit people had never heard it, and the same thing about the fashion and the dyes. This was just from a different part of the country. Or a different part of Europe, I should say.
Right.
And that we already talked about chlorosis, explaining their skin, which I think is by far the most likely result of malnutrition if they were overpopulated and didn't have adequate food.
Okay.
And then there's also another interesting thing is that she said she was from St. Martin's Land. Well, there was another village about 2 miles away from Woolpit called Fornham St. Martin, where Flemish people had immigrated. But the weird thing is that the reason that this doesn't fully check out is that Woolpit is in a very populous part of England. And the idea that these would be the first Flemish people that they would ever come across, and that nobody in the town would be like, "Oh yeah, they're from across the strait. They're, these immigrants that live there's a settlement 2 miles away from us." It seems very unlikely that it would
Right.
never occur to anyone that that's who these people were. And same thing with the clothes. I mean, England was a trading hub.
Right.
They very multicultural at this point, which is why that just doesn't really check out the same way that the chlorosis checks out. That makes sense. Modern medicine can tell us what that is very easily, and they didn't really understand it.
Yeah. Also known as hypochromic anemia.
Yes, hypochromic anemia, which means supercolored anemia. So that's that there are those, and then there's the third kind of theory is that this was made up. This is 100% folklore, passed down from other things, but it seems unlikely that it is, just because of the two historians who recorded it from the same time period.
No, they're not going to be.
And the fact that this story does not exist before it. There's not like, oh, this is pretty much exactly like this other fairy tale that existed 100 years before.
And since it was historians who recorded it, I mean, they're obviously professionals like us. We're not going to tell you things that aren't true.
Sure. In fact, I think Ralph of Coggestall went to ASU.
It was.
I remember seeing him on the website as one of the famous graduates.
He was actually one of the founders of the college.
Oh wow! Okay.
Not many people are aware, but Arizona State University first started in England. There was a small town called Arizona. It's since gone. I believe it's been renamed London.
Yes.
Good old London.
It was called Arizona, and then Londinium.
But
now London.
When it got renamed, they refused to change the name of the college, and they were like, "Well, you can't be here anymore. Like, you're either changing it to London University or nothing. And so they were like, well, screw this. We're going to the New World. And that's where Arizona comes from.
I heard that, England was in such a loss for academic achievement that Oxford got built.
Yes. The Oxford was built
to fill the void of ASU.
Yes, absolutely. You're right.
They say that J.R.R. Tolkien wished he could have gone to ASU instead of Oxford.
That is 100% correct. They've found ancient writings where he said this. Ancient meaning, very old, not like ancient. Not many people are aware of that, but as his dying breath, he was like, I wish I had gone to ASU, and then he just died.
Truth.
That's the true. It's the big true.
The true.
Anyway.
So, anyways, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this?
My thoughts are that I know where these children came from.
Excellent.
It was not Fleming.
Flanders is the place.
Sorry. The language that you said was Flemish. Sorry. Was not Fleming. It wasn't Fleming. Well, duh. We didn't say it was Fleming. It was not Flanders. They weren't Dutch. These children were Greek. Let me tell you how I know that. They described a land of twilight where there wasn't much light. That's because these children were the children of Hades. Okay? You following?
Continuously, yes.
The river that they had to cross, the river Styx. Duh.
Are you saying that Woolpit is on the other side of the river Styx?
No, I'm saying that they came out on the other side of the river Styx
to Woolpit,
and no, it's like the portal just happened to pop them out there by Woolpit.
Oh, okay.
The reason they were it was obviously sclerosis. The reason they were malnourished is because Hades is a terrible father. He wasn't feeding them, and they went looking for food with these cows. The cattle were actually, I may be misremembering, but didn't Hades steal some of Apollo's cattle at one point in Greek mythology?
That was Hermes.
Okay, well, he stole them and took them to Hades. he was on the take, and Hades really wanted these cattle from Apollo, so he stole these cattle, and he was like, "Hey, children, who I don't feed or care about or love, go tend the cattle." So they crossed the river Styx, and they emerged in Woolpit, and the language that they were speaking was Greek. Was it? Yeah, Greek. Not Roman. Or Latin, rather. There is no Roman language. They were speaking Greek because their father was of Grecian origin. And this was before Hades had Persephone, but also after he had Persephone. So they had no mother figure. It takes a long time. When he sent them off to do whatever, it took them, hundreds and hundreds of years to cross the river Styx, in relative time, because, the underworld is in a time dilation state. And so, relative, after they left, that's when Persephone came in. So they only had a shitty father figure. They never had a mother.
Okay.
So, that's what happened. I'm laying it on the ground right there. I'm going to lay it on the table. You can pick it up if you like it. If not, too bad. That's where I'm leaving it.
Well, I would like to present to you my dissertation and what happened.
Okay.
This is, like I said, I'm pretty proud of this work. I think I did some good work here. This is my first real deep dig since getting my PhD. While yours is a very good explanation, it's a little bit wrong. And
you're gonna tell me I'm wrong on my own podcast?
I mean, my evidence is pointing somewhere else. Is all I'm saying. See, here's the thing: Greeks would never go to England. That just wouldn't happen. No matter what, they come out of Styx in England, they're gonna go back to Styx. No matter what, it just instantly they're gonna be like, "Oh gosh, it smells like bad cheese," and they leave. Everyone knows that 12th century England smelled like bad cheese.
I thought that was France.
Oh, that smelled like worse cheese.
Oh, okay. Like, it smelled like really bad cheese.
Because you got to remember, we're talking about England, right?
Mhm.
Meaning the mythology of England takes precedent over the mythology of Greece in England.
And the mythology of England was
Is
Jesus
clearly
Christ.
no. There's another myth.
During the
One
1200s.
one involving a king who united the people.
Oh, I completely forgot about him. Yeah.
Yeah, a man who went by the name of Arthur.
I think you mean a woman who went by Arturia.
Okay, weeb. King
For those of
Arthur
you who don't know, no, go ahead.
comes from a rich heritage of fairy stories in Western Europe. And King Arthur, many believe, is an amalgamation of some of these heroes that would rise up to become the king of the kings of England.
Much like Robin Hood.
Much like Robin Hood. Now, from my intense study and some of the descriptions, like a land lit by twilight where everything is green. That sounds like a fairy story because they went into the woods, and everyone knows when you go into the woods, you don't know what's coming out.
Everyone knows when you go into the woods, a musical's going to happen.
But the thing is they are from the Fey realm. They are fairies. That's why their skin was green, why they remember a great river and twilight, because that's the only memory they had. Well, sure, scholars chalk it up to that they were children, and they were malnourished, so they had bad memory, which might all make sense, but it's just not the truth. Because the truth is that they were fairy children who ended up on Earth by accident, and by eating earth food. Remember, they didn't want to eat anything but green beans because they were fresh and natural, just like the food they were eating in the forest with the fairy queen. And as they finally started to eat human food, they started to become human. Except the boy didn't make it because, it's hard adjusting to a change in biology going from fairy to human.
Okay. Were they expelled from the Fey lands, or were they... Like, did they just happen to wander too far?
I believe they were lured from the fairy lands by mankind.
By the wolves.
By the wolves in the wolf pits. I believe
they brought it all back around.
I believe it was the church bells that they heard that lured them out of the forest, and that's the explanation. Is that these were fairy children.
So, regardless of which one's right, listeners, we do have some kind of an explanation here. And the explanation is that these children, while not technically aliens, I mean, they were alien to our world, but they were not of Earth.
They were of mythological origin.
Yes. But how can they be of mythological origin when those myths are true? Huh? Myth isn't true.
You just wrinkled my brain.
Which means that,
I'm going to have to get a degree in mythology now.
there is a Feyland, and there is an underworld where Hades resides to this day. Or Pluto, whoever you want to call him. Because, he is one and the same. So, regardless of where they came from, I say they came from Hades. RJ says they came from the Feylands and were lured by the wolves in the wolf pits. Or rather, the bells, the church bells. That brings up a funny image, too, of the wolves ringing the church bells to lure these children out of the forest.
Oh, there's a good fairy tale in here somewhere.
I don't know why that's so funny to me. Regardless, they crossed over from a different plane of existence, and the boy couldn't adapt, so he died. And, I think we solved it. We just disagree on the origins, like where they came from. So
yeah, this has been definitely solved. 100% dollars.
1,000% dollars. With that in mind, once again, I just want to mention that if you have a mystery that you would like for us to solve on the podcast, you're more than welcome to send that or any kind of love, hate, death threats, whatever that you want to send to us to Mysteries Solved Podcast at gmail.com. And you can find us on Facebook at Unsolved Mysteries Solved, and on Twitter at UMS_podcast. And do you have anything else that you want to add?
I think that's it for now. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for being here again. And in the meantime, don't question us or you'll be put down. And thanks for listening, guys.
Shut up, guys. This is why I don't do these things in person.
All right, have a seat, class, and let Fernand educate you.
From executive producer Persephone Rose.
We've all got something we're dealing with here, and sometimes things get rough.
In a city populated by monsters and demons.
I want 6 pizzas, topped with your freshest sacrificed goat.
Comes the story of a pizzeria that also sells weed.
Hey G-Man, you got any new bud flavors?
One crew must face unprecedented challenges.
Let me talk to your manager.
Anything with meat on it.
You are definitely overcharging me.
Of all the terrible customer service atrocities,
We just have to push through and try our best.
Let the transference of spirits begin!
As the dough rises
Just what kind of business are you running around here, huh?
and an empire falls.
We didn't order any stinking pizza. Hey, wait! What shop did you say you were from again?
You aren't really going to kill him, are you?
I told him you'd be nothing but trouble. Imagine my surprise when it turned out I was right.
Hey boss, Fernie's gone and lost us another driver.
Get me my silver bullet gun, now!
My offspring have a basic right to eat.
You are under arrest on cross-dimensional terrorism charges. We have extensive evidence linking you to massacres in at least 6 distinct universes.
Postal Roach Audio proudly presents Emperor Pigs, Pizza, and Cigs.
Believe it or not, we've dealt with worse situations around here.
EmperorPigs.com.